Greek cities were established around an agora. An agora is a place where you buy and sell, engage in commercial activities, as you know, and that was typically the center of an ancient city. And now for the Romans, then the center of the city was more political than commercial, and so they had forums. But this is sometimes called a second agora, but it has political functions. That's the reason why you just walk through the Bouleuterion. That's where the boule meets. Boule is town council. Many of the inscriptions that we see will make reference of two groups of people. The demos, which is the democracy or the citizenry, better translation, and the boule, which is the town council. And they typically meet in a structure such as you saw. It's covered, and it would also function with dual purpose. Sometimes there would be musical events that would take place in a Bouleuterion as well. So these are not structures that were used solely for singular purposes. What you see here is the Prytaneon. The Prytaneon was considered to be the most important political building in a city that was a Roman city, or even a city that was colonized eventually by the Romans. And as Levent has already mentioned, this is where the eternal fire would be. Also the cult statue of Artemis. We will see two large life-size cult statues in the Ephesus Museum later on today. Both of them were discovered here at the Prytaneon. Then we continue to look over to our left-hand side. We see the substructure. We can walk as we go so that we make some progress here. But the structure that you see here is the foundation of the Temple of Domitian. And of course, this is the individual that we've been talking about throughout our discussions as we've traveled through the 7 cities. Domitian permitted the city of Ephesus to construct a temple to honor him. This is what we call the Neokoros. That is the guardian of the imperial temple. Now, most of this temple has been demolished. It has not survived, but what you see are the barrel arches that create the flat platform upon which the temple once existed. This is similar. You may recall seeing something similar to this at Pergamum, because at Pergamum, you also had the barrel arches to flatten the land. You can't build structures on sloping land. And so this is a way of leveling the land. But from this point here, this is a great look out onto the city. You can see the magnitude, how large this temple was. It was massive. You can also see that it was faced with statues all along, that would have been all along the front. And then on top of the temple would have been, on top of the platform would be the temple. And then in front of the temple, there would be the altar of Domitian. A portion of that altar has been discovered and is in the Ephesus Museum, which we'll see a little bit later today. Yeah. The altar of Domitian was U-shaped, similar to what, again, want to help you to recall the altar of Zeus. Remember the altar of Zeus in Pergamum that was removed by the Germans, taken back to Berlin? That was likewise U-shaped. This is also U-shaped. Only one wing of that altar has survived, and that is in the Ephesus Museum. Now also in front of the altar was a statue, a massive Colossus statue of, who do you think? Domitian himself. This statue stood 30 feet in height and could be seen from virtually anywhere in the city. Okay, conspicuously placed. Of course, it's in the political forum because it has, of course, political connotations. He's the one who rules over land and sea, but also could be seen from the harbor. If you look over to this flat land at the foot of the hills, that's the ancient harbor. Now, the Cayster River flows through this region, okay, and it brings alluvial soil, which dumps into the harbor region, and it was constantly silting up. The Romans, even during the 1st century, were dredging the harbor to try and keep it up, to keep it open. This is the major port at one time on the Aegean Sea, the biggest port on the Aegean Sea. This was a huge city, the largest, one of the 5 largest cities in all of the Mediterranean, and certainly the largest city in Anatolia. So you had to keep the harbor open. Well, eventually they lost that battle. And today The coastline is another 3 miles in that direction. So once they lost the coast, the city was abandoned. And that is to our benefit. We've already seen several cities where the modern city sits squarely on top of the ancient city, and you can't see a whole lot. Fortunately, the Austrians, who have been in here for some 50, well, probably even more than 50 years, what has been about 80 years, doing excavations, are able to excavate all over the place. As Levin just recently mentioned, about 20% of the city has been excavated to this point. And of course, archaeologists are intelligent. They want to excavate the places that are most likely to return dividends. And that is to have some appeal and some interest to them. So probably some of the most strategic sections of the city have been excavated. So at any rate, this is the temple of Domitian. Now, I don't know if we have enough time, but if we scoot up the street here, underneath and in the lower sections of the barrel arched substructure,
Mark, we will go there.
we have, okay, let's move that direction maybe,
Yeah,
and
we will walk there.
we can walk in that direction.
I also have another one picture, because I have limited pictures like this. Whenever there is one, I will just show it to you. This is, there you can see the platform created with the vaulted galleries, okay? And this is how it used to look like. As Mark has mentioned, there was a U-shaped altar right in front of it, Domitianus temple itself. But the statue that he has mentioned, we're going to see a part of it in the museum, but it's not in this restored view picture. And that was, as you can see, they even hired it up to a certain level that even than the state agora it was higher. So this is like the highest point. Even by looking at it, you can have the feeling like, okay, we're a council here, we're the rulers, but look over there. That is the one who rules us all.